We've already seen several relatives of Peppa and her friends in the Little Pig show, but did you know that some characters in Peppa Pig have relatives who have never appeared in the show? Robbie Pig. Many of these unknown relatives are actually part of the pig family itself, one of them being Peppa's uncle. No, we're not talking about Uncle Pig, who is Daddy Pig's brother and Chloe's father. We're actually talking about an uncle on her mother's side. In other words, a brother of Mummy Pig who has never appeared in the show. We don't know his name, but let's call him Robbie Pig. The main reason we believe he's out there somewhere has to do with Mummy Pig's own children. Before, she only had Peppa and George, a girl and a boy. At that time, it wasn't known that Mummy Pig had siblings until we found out in November 2024 that she has a sister named Dottie. Coincidence or not, it was in 2025, a few months after Dottie appeared, that Peppa got a sister named Eevee. This created a similarity between Peppa and Mummy Pig, since both of them now have a younger sister. Since Eevee was born shortly after Dottie appeared in the series, this may have been intentional to make the two generations more alike. But if that's the case, then one thing needs to happen. Mummy Pig needs to reveal that she also has a brother, just like George. That way, while the new generation has Peppa, Eevee, and George, the previous generation would have Mummy Pig, Aunt Dottie, and Uncle Robbie, as if history is repeating itself. This is just the first of the 13 unknown relatives you've never seen in Peppa Pig. The moment has come! Let's enjoy another Cinewave together! Barry Sheep. The Sheep family has already had some spotlight in a few Peppa Pig episodes, but there's definitely much more to show because we haven't seen all of Susie Sheep's relatives yet. But it's possible that there's a relative of Susie who has actually appeared, just without us knowing about his connection to her. He's called Barry Sheep by fans of the show, but his real name is unknown. Barry is a black sheep who has shown up as a background character in a few episodes. Although it's possible that he belongs to a different sheep family, we have to remember that Susie already has a cousin named Charlotte, so what's stopping her from having more cousins? It would make a lot of sense if this character was quietly appearing in the background at first, only to later be revealed as Susie's cousin. Paul Pony. Another one of Peppa's friends with secret relatives is Pedro Pony, and his case is even more curious, because he definitely has a younger brother, except that this brother was practically banned from appearing in the show. The little boy's name is Paul Pony, and he appeared in a Peppa Pig book, but never got any real spotlight in the series, only showing up as a background character. This makes many people believe that the character was simply erased from existence, but some think he appeared in the episode The Diner, which takes place in the United States, something that could suggest Paul was turned into an American character who might not even be related to Pedro anymore. But this hasn't been confirmed, so the truth is that Paul still exists, and it might just be a matter of time before he gets proper attention as Pedro Pony's brother. That would be really cool because it would give George another friend to play with, since he and Paul seem to be around the same age. So, do you think Pedro's brother deserves to join the main Peppa Pig cast? Great Aunt Eevee. Eevee's birth brought about a well-known relative for Peppa, but it also revealed the existence of another relative we had no idea about, Great Aunt Eevee. The name of Peppa's younger sister is a tribute to this great aunt, who only appeared in a photo, and the reason this woman never showed up in person is a sad one. Great Aunt Eevee has already passed away. As far as we know, this character is Mummy Pig's great aunt, which means she is the sister of one of Peppa's great-grandparents. That's quite a few generations back. With that in mind, it makes sense that this Eevee from the past is no longer alive. She would be incredibly old if she were still around today. Even so, it's still completely possible that Great Aunt Eevee could appear in a flashback episode set in a time when she was still alive. Madame Gazelle's husband. Madame Gazelle is, without a doubt, one of the most mysterious characters in the show. She is much older than anyone else in town, and that's not even a secret since she was the teacher of Daddy Pig and Mummy Pig when they were children, and she looked exactly the same as she does today. With that in mind, the black and white photo of a male gazelle we see in her house takes on a whole new meaning, because it's very likely that man was Madame Gazelle's husband in the past, but unlike Madame Gazelle, he probably aged normally until the end of his life, leaving Peppa's teacher alone. This tragedy explains why we never see Madame Gazelle with a boyfriend or husband. She is a widow and may never have gotten over her former love, which is really sad. If the show ever explored this and gave us an episode showing Madame Gazelle's past with her husband, a lot of people would probably end up crying like babies. Would you like to see that episode too? If so, comment down below #Gazelle. Nicole Pig. We already talked about Robbie, Mummy Pig's unknown brother, but what if we told you that Daddy Pig also has has a sister who has never appeared in the series. Just like in Robbie's case, we don't know the name of this possible relative, but we're going to call her Nicole Pig. The first clue that she exists showed up when we saw a strange photo in Daddy Pig's office. The picture shows two little pigs who look unbelievably similar to Peppa and George, but who, for some reason, are wearing different clothes. But we don't think the two of them are actually Peppa and George in other outfits, because the photo is in black and white, as if it had been taken in the distant past. And that means the two children in that photo are Daddy Pig as a young boy and an unknown girl who looks like Peppa, who must be his older sister, Nicole Pig. Right now, she must be somewhere in the world of Peppa, and she may appear in the future of the series, just like Aunt Dottie only showed up after so many years. Carol Cow. We all have to agree that Mrs. Cow's wedding to Mr. Bull was beautiful, and some people wonder when the two of them are going to have children, but can you believe that everything points to Mrs. Cow already being a mother? That's because there's a little cow who has appeared in the series a few times, named Carol Cow, who seems to be her daughter. Carol Cow has never had a major role, but she has shown up as a background character in certain episodes. The theories about her being Mrs. Cow's daughter started when the two of them began being seen together in the background of episode scenes, which suggests that the two at least have some kind of family connection, especially since they are both cows. However, it's a little strange that we didn't see Carol Cow at her supposed mother's wedding, so the question remains, is she really Mrs. Cow's daughter, or was all of this just a misunderstanding? Well, nothing stops her from being a more distant relative, like a niece who sometimes comes to spend time with her aunt. Paternal grandparents. Everyone who watches Peppa Pig knows Peppa's grandparents, because they appear all the time in the show and are very fun, but those two are only the little pig's maternal grandparents. In other words, Mummy Pig's parents. Where are the paternal grandparents? Daddy Pig's parents? The truth is that they have never appeared in these more than 20 years that the series has been getting episodes, and they are never even mentioned, as if the family were pretending they never existed. Peppa and George probably don't even know they have more grandparents, because they're too innocent to think about that. However, those paternal grandparents certainly do exist, because Daddy Pig has to have parents, unless of course the two of them sadly already passed away, which would explain why they are never mentioned. It may be a trauma Daddy Pig has never gotten over. Susie's father. When we think of families, we almost always imagine a father and a mother. Of course, not all families are like that, like Susie's family, where we only ever see her mother at home. Still, could it be that Susie has a father somewhere out there? There's a chance Daddy Sheep could appear in the show someday. Just like Peppa's paternal grandparents, Daddy Sheep is never even mentioned, which makes him even more mysterious. Some also believe that Susie's father may have passed away, while others think it makes much more sense that he and Mummy Sheep are divorced. Penny Pony. Did you think Pedro Pony only had one brother? The truth is that there's a very strong chance he also has a sister named Penny Pony, and just like in the case of his brother Paul, she never had a major appearance, leaving Pedro with this curse of seeming like an only child even though he isn't. The curious thing is that Penny was the original version of Pedro, who was first imagined by the creators of Peppa Pig as a girl before being changed into a boy. But the characters were split apart, with Penny appearing as a background character in a few episodes. Since she is basically a female version of Pedro, what would make more sense than the two of them being siblings? You know what would be awesome? Subscribing right now and getting all our videos straight on YouTube. Dottie's husband. Aunt Dottie was one of the coolest surprises in Peppa Pig. She had already been mentioned in the past, but so much time had gone by that few people still believed Peppa's aunt would ever appear in the show, but it actually happened. Dottie is Mummy Pig's sister and lives in another country, which is why she rarely visits her family, but we still know very little about her. We don't even know if Dottie has a husband, even though that would make a lot of sense. After all, Dottie is around the same age as Mummy Pig, who is married and has 3 children, so it's completely natural to think that Dottie could indeed be married to someone in the country where she lives. Susie's grandfather. Another member of the Sheep family who has never shown up is Grandpa Sheep. Seriously, the only one we've seen from that older generation is Granny Sheep. When she moved into Susie's house, she came completely alone, accompanied only by her belongings. Since we're talking about the grandparents' generation, it's entirely possible that Susie's grandfather has already passed away. That's nothing unusual to think about. Granny Rabbit. Now, when it comes to the Rabbit family, the opposite happens. We only ever see Grandpa Rabbit throughout the entire series, with no sign of Granny Rabbit at all. This is another case where we could very well be talking about a widower, since Grandpa Rabbit lives a solitary life that closely resembles that of elderly widowers who lost their loved ones a long time ago and were never the same afterward. We've prepared 2 videos you're going to love. Pick one and keep having fun here with teen videos.